Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Go to Bolt fam, it's the Director. It's going to be a tough one for me today, man. You guys know how big of a Joey Bosa fan I am. How many of you guys been around since like the Madden days? Huh? Anybody remember? Oh my God, it's Joey Bosa. Yeah, Joey Bosa's been a very special player to me since he was drafted, man. I'm a huge Joey Bosa fan. I kind of knew this day was coming. I think a lot of us Chargers fans knew this was coming, and for it to happen, especially after Ortiz was like, oh, he could stick around. Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a huge bummer. As I said in my tweet, thank you, Joey. You'll always be one of my favorite Chargers. I know that he maybe didn't leave the best impression on the fan base after several seasons of being sidelined, the potential not being realized when we signed Khalil Mack. That whole dream was super exciting. It didn't really come to fruition as often as we had hoped. Joey Bosa, the legacy is real. We're going to pay tribute to him in this video and kind of tell you guys what's going on with the money and the void that we need to fill in terms of, a free agent or a rookie in today's episode. We're also going to be going over a little bit of the DK Metcalf news that dropped yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw. He was officially come out to request a trade from the Seattle Seahawks. And, of course, the Chargers have been linked every which way, including last season when it seems we were trying to aggressively pursue DK Metcalf in a trade. It could very realistically happen this season. Some exciting stuff up and coming. Before we do kick things off, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take advantage of the offer on screen. It's a great way to support my platform while having some fun along the way. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
DK Metcalf or Davante Adams, which should the Chargers be choosing? But first, I'll be later in the episode, but first, we got to talk a little bit about the situation unfolding in LA regarding Joey Bosa. Man, Big Bear, this is going to be a tough one, dude. I will forever be a giant Joey Bosa fan. I wish him luck wherever he goes. There's rumor and speculation that he may be joining his brother in San Francisco. I know Mama Big Bear, the Bosa mama, was very much so in favor of that idea. If he does, I wish him all the love in the world and all the success in the world and all the health in the world. Please, would love to see Joey bounce back in his twilight seasons if he continues to play. But this is a pretty big one, man. The Chargers, I think just as I do, I feel like he means even more to the Chargers organization. So this decision did not come lightly. It was an important one. Funny enough, I was playing Marvel Rivals with some of my buddies last night, and my best friend McKay, you guys have heard about him several times in the show, he referenced a line from Star Wars as I was saying, hey, dude, this is the last San Diego Charger. This is tugging at my heartstrings. He says, let the past die. Kill it if you have to. And, in some way, shape, or form, it's kind of true. The last San Diego Charger, perhaps the last link to the San Diego Chargers curse, but nonetheless a very beloved name and player within the organization, and one that's going to very much so be missed, one that left a huge impression on me and on the fan base. Let's not get confused here. Joey Bosa really is and will always be one of the greatest Chargers ever. Now, second on the list in totals of sacks in Chargers history, behind Leslie O'Neal, which is definitely not a small feat. I know it seemed maybe late in his career that he wasn't living up to his potential, that it was frustrating, wondering whether or not he would be on the field, if he would play, and this led to a lot of anger from some fans, frustration on my part too, even as a Joey Bosa fan. I wanted to see this guy play so desperately. And that is the most recent version of Joey Bosa that we got. But when you take a look at his numbers and you take a look at his his career as a whole, he really did live up to the number 3 overall pick potential. And I don't know, man. I'm really struggling here, dude, because it's going to be a different team without Joey. It's going to be a different, vibe without Joey. This is your gamer guy as well. I'm a huge gamer too, man. I don't know. It just feels like Joey Bosa is the kind of dude that I would personally be friends with. His personality, and it's quiet and reserved, but could be really funny, behind the scenes. It kind of feels like that kind of dude. I don't know. On the field, off the field, you got to love Joey Bosa. Thank you, Joey, for everything you brought this team. It's going to be a different experience as a Chargers fan, not getting to see 97 play on Sundays. But in the end, like we were saying, the money didn't make sense. We're getting, reaching $40 million. It was in the mid-30s, high mid-30s. That just wasn't going to happen. The Chargers would have had to really move things around in order to make sense to keep Joey Bosa on the team. Maybe another pay cut would have been required. And even then, the possibility of a recent Joey Bosa, who hasn't been on the field more often than not, was probably just too much for this team to gamble on. And for that, it just made more sense to part ways. Let him go find success maybe in another team, maybe with his brother, which is certainly something I think is worth pursuing if I were Joey Bosa. And help the Chargers just build for the future. The Jim Harbaugh, I know Jim, I'm sure, is heartbroken over this, but I know this team it needs to move forward. And you're going to need resources to do that. You're going to need availability from your players to do that. And unfortunately, Joey Bosa just didn't fit that mold anymore. That being said, we'll always love Joey Bosa. This is going to free up $25 million for those of you guys are wondering. The Chargers, we're going to have some dead cap on the side, but it does free up a huge amount of money for the Bolts to work with. And that's going to go a long way. Even this season is going to go a long way. But that void is going to be felt, man. We're going to have, all of a sudden, the Chargers are going to be in that conversation of edge just because of the big shoes being left behind by Joey Bosa to fill. It's all of a sudden you're going to start seeing the Chargers, in mock drafts saying, hey, they just lost Joey Bosa. Maybe we look at this guy, or out of Tennessee, or we look at that guy in the second or third round. All of a sudden, come Monday, mind you, this is coming up soon, man. We're going to have one more big episode tomorrow regarding free agency, and then it's going to be here, man. We're going to be together in anticipation of what the Chargers do. Free agency could be another potential place the Chargers find maybe some help at edge to help that Joey Bosa situation. Now, I think first and foremost, though, you got to be looking at the situation with Khalil Mack and say to yourself, hey, it's time. You know what I mean? Like now with Joey Bosa gone, you got Tuli Tuipulotu out there. You got Bud Dupree. I don't think that's enough to help this Jesse Minter defense sustain itself. You're going to have to go and get Khalil Mack on a contract to return. I feel like that feels pretty important all of a sudden. Which, if you're Khalil Mack, do you want to come back without Joey? You have to realize how close these guys were. Kind of a big deal, behind the scenes. But I'm sure, Khalil Mack loves the environment, the Jim Harbaugh, the everything about the Chargers right now is very attractive to free agents, especially guys that are maybe later in their years, especially guys on defense where Jesse Minter's, system seems to thrive. I feel like Khalil Mack would have every reason to return, but it feels especially important now that Joey Bosa is gone. And then you're going to see a lot of names, again, like I was saying, free agency. Guys like Josh Sweat, guys that fit very well, I'll be honest. 6'5", 600, or 265 pounds. This is the kind of guy that Jim Harbaugh is going to want on his edge. He's pretty decent versus the pass, versus the run. He's got 8 sacks last season. This would be a guy to play opposite, Tuli Tuipulotu, even in rotation. You know what I mean? Just like, with Joey Bosa when he was in and out, this would be a pretty good candidate. He'd be, relatively, not cheap, but, compared to Joey Bosa's contract, you're saying anything, south of $20 million is certainly worth pursuing per season. Josh Sweat would be a really good fit. Another guy that I'm really intrigued in all of a sudden, just because of what happened last year, is also going to be Chase Young. I know a lot of people will look at Chase Young and be like, kind of, maybe light bust potential here, a light bust, label here because of, not living up to that first round potential with the Washington football team. But because of what the Chargers are And because of what they've proved over and over with me this last season, with very many players on defense, especially on their ability to unearth, potential and value in these defensive players, it gets me especially interested in what a signing like Chase Young could mean for this team. Because you got to look at the majority of these guys that we brought in last season, very much so underperforming. A lot of them a bit older, especially guys like Tony Jefferson, Marcus May, these guys. It feels like if Jesse Minter was able to unearth value in those guys and bring out value in those guys, well, imagine what he can do with a young guy. Because this Chase Young is only 25 years old. This could, give us huge potential for a guy of the future now. Like, what if we get that first round, version of Chase Young for 4 years? What if you sign him for 1 or 2 years, he pops off, and you have your guy? I feel that with Chase Young. I feel like with the Chargers specifically, and Jesse Minter specifically, maybe you get the Chase Young that was advertised when he was drafted not too long ago. And speaking of the draft, you're going to start seeing a lot of comparisons or a lot of links to guys like, James Pierce. This dude, insane. You guys catch his 40. He ran a 4.47. Now you might say to yourself, oh, that's pretty good for a wide receiver. Yeah, it is. Except this guy is 6'5", 243 pounds, and plays on defense at edge. That would be I've seen him mock to the Chargers a couple of times right now. That would be an insane pick for the Chargers. But Ian, you're looking first round. You're probably looking at past guys like Colson Loveland and Marion Hampton and these guys. But all of a sudden, the Chargers will be in those conversations. Mike Green, Donovan, Izraku. Those guys, also dudes to watch for the chart, because you're going to probably be looking around the first, 2 or 3 rounds if you're looking for the draft to be where you're supplementing that position from. There you have it. Joey Bosa, I will miss you tremendously. Thank you for everything you brought me, a fan, and thank you for everything you brought the team. We're wishing you nothing but success and love, at least from my platform, and hopefully the entire Chargers fan base. I think I've been feeling that from the Chargers fandom more often than not. There's your situation with Joey Bosa. Let's move into the next talking point. This one's going to be a little bit quicker because we've covered all this in recent videos, especially the Davante Adams side of it, because we're going to talk about, the weighing of Davante Adams and DK Metcalf and which one's right for the team a lot in this video. Okay, because this is a pretty big deal. The Chargers, who are very wide receiver needy, one of the biggest needs of the team, one of the biggest wide receiver needy teams in the NFL that also has potential to go far, in the postseason in terms of wins, in terms of maybe Super Bowl potential. The Chargers are the team. And you're starting to see a lot of players linking themselves or finding a preferred destination in Los Angeles because of the Bolts. I've heard Tyreek Hill's team saying that he wants to come to the Chargers. You've heard a lot of Davante Adams and DK Metcalf. These are huge, huge wide receiver names because they know the opportunity that lays in LA with the Bolts. It's actually pretty massive. Now, for those of you guys that didn't hear the news yesterday, DK Metcalf has officially requested a trade. And that's pretty significant considering all of the evidence that has linked him to the Chargers these past few weeks, maybe last month or so, maybe now we're understanding dating into last season. This was insane. We scroll up a little bit here. The Chargers, from Jonathan Jones, the Chargers are a team several around the league are watching as a possible DK Metcalf landing spot. Okay. All right. Then you see this guy, he's a beat writer for the Seattle Seahawks. What do you say? 100,000 followers, covers the Seattle Seahawks, yada, yada, yada. Trusted source. Mentioned this in my story as well. Metcalf has spent off seasons in LA as of late, and Chargers wide receivers coach is Sanjay Law, with whom Metcalf is especially close. The evidence is starting to pile up here. Man, we're all getting excited about the idea. Here's Albert Breer saying, Chargers have a lot to offer veteran receivers. Los Angeles opportunity to play indoors, big stages in that division, proven coaching staff, playoff team, and of course, Justin Herbert throwing you the ball. Absolutely. But then you also got to consider the Bolt, which wasn't mentioned there. The Bolt is a huge reason. I'm hearing a lot of players want to come play with the Chargers because of that facility, which is absolutely insane. I've been to that facility several times. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, I could see the draw. If you could choose where to go to work, and if you were to go to work at that building, I promise you're going to look at that building twice before considering another team. Insanity. We got a whole bunch of Joey Bosa stuff. Gonna miss you, guy. Yeah, nothing hits you harder than a brand new Joey Bosa jersey back in the day, man. Then one of our friends at Bleacher Report, Jordan Schultz, dropped this yesterday too. DK Metcalf is expected to draw interest from multiple teams, but dating back to last offseason, the Chargers were the one team that quietly but aggressively pursued him in trade talks, only to be rebuffed by Seattle. Chargers remain in the receiver markets. Yeah, dating back to last season, the Chargers were already pursuing DK Metcalf. They have already tried in the last year. And it really makes a whole lot of sense as to why, man. Then our friend over here, Dean Thanos, DK Metcalf's home in West Hollywood area is about 20 miles away from the Bolts. Of course, that's like 6 million hours in California time in terms of transit. But he's already got roots in Los Angeles. One of his closest allies and friends in Sanjay Lal resides in Los Angeles. The evidence keeps piling on. Now, I will mention this in the same breath, too, because this was also mentioned just this morning. The Seattle Seahawks are seeking a first and third round pick for wide receiver DK Metcalf per sources. Metcalf is also eyeing a new contract worth around $30 million per season. Now, this was kind of expected. $30 million, we kind of knew. I was like, okay, we're looking maybe between, because my estimation was probably somewhere at like $27, $28 million a season, which definitely could still happen. That could still happen. But $30 million is definitely the high end of that. Could still definitely be worth it. It would still be cheaper than guys like T. Higgins in the future and the wide receiver market, which is just booming right now. That could certainly still be a value signing for the Chargers later down the road. So $30 million doesn't scare me as much, but this does. First and third round pick. To that, my response was the classic Jameson laugh from Spider-Man, just because it is a negotiation tactic. That is not going to happen. I'll say that flat out. Nobody, maybe somebody, I don't know, maybe a super desperate team says, all right, here's a first and a third for DK Metcalf. But it just feels like that opening offer at like a pawn shop, you got to throw it in there just to lower the price a bit. You know that you're going to have to compromise and meet them in the middle somewhere. But that's all that is, in my opinion. The Seattle Seahawks are saying, hey, we know DK Metcalf has got to go. We know that per his wishes, because he requested a trade, the leverage has now been put a bit more on the team that would be acquiring him, right? Because you're also adopting his contract. You'd have to, extend him. And now he doesn't want to play for Seattle. He wants to go somewhere else. And again, all the evidence is pointing towards the Chargers being that team. If the leverage is showing that maybe you don't have as much control as you would hope in the situation, you're going to throw out a pawn shop offer and say, hey, give us a first and a third and it's business. It's done. It's a done deal. And the Chargers will say, you know what? That's not going to work for us. How about we counter with a second round pick and change, which feels more fair. It feels more like that would be something definitely more in a realistic, terms of negotiation. That's probably what he would go for, is a second and change. Maybe you could squeeze out like a second and third, like a pick swap or something like that. But certainly a first and a third just seems ludicrous to me. You know what I mean? There you go. That's what we're looking at for DK Metcalf. Now, on the other side of things, this is where it becomes really intriguing to me, because this is actually a huge deal if you're a Chargers fan in terms of weighing the pros and cons. Davante Adams has also been linked to the Chargers. We just covered it in a video not like 2 or 3 days ago as to why he would be a great addition to the team. This is also a very big deal because the options in terms of elite wide receiver are all of a sudden available. DK Metcalf, deep threat, big playmaker, would absolutely unlock the arm of Justin Herbert. Insane hands, red zone potential, great, let's say great route runner. One of the greats in the NFL for a reason right now. The reason why he's going to have, a robust market and options in terms of trade partner because he is legit. He's a legit wide receiver one, and he's young, and he gives you an answer for the future. Davante Adams, on the other hand, he is more of an immediate answer, a much friendlier budget answer, but a very elite answer nonetheless for a football team that needs time. Because Davante Adams, to me, man, who's also very adamant, mind you, take a look at this, man. Yes, we're excited about that. Take a look at this. Ian Rappaport. While the assumption has been that Davante Adams wants to play with Aaron Rodgers, which, of course, and historically, that's been the plan, my understanding is the pull of being on the West Coast is very real. I think I went over in that video, Davante Adams, Jim Harbaugh, both went to Palo Alto High School. They got California roots. Of course, Palo Alto closer to San Francisco. That could be a destination for Davante Adams. Maybe that's the draw. Maybe that's what he's talking about in terms of West Coast. But, the Chargers seem like a very likely destination as well. There's been a lot of connections between the Chargers and Davante Adams. And that signing and that scenario is also extremely real and likely. Now you're asking yourself, which road do you want to take? Do you want to take the road of Davante Adams, or should say DK Metcalf, who is going to be costly? You're talking draft compensation, you're talking contract, but you're also talking longevity. This guy's going to play for you for 4 or 5 years. He's going to unlock the potential of Justin Herbert's arm. He's got speed that Davante Adams doesn't have. He's got elite, traits in some areas that Davante doesn't have, but this is a very good option for the Bolts. In any other season, this is a great option, and what's like a very rare option. You're not going to see very many players like this dropped in your lap very often. And then on the other side of the coin, you got Davante Adams, who, let's be clear, is still playing at an insanely elite level, right? He's been averaging 1,000 yards, like 8 to 10 touchdowns a season, despite the fact that he's getting the football from freaking Farva, from Aiden O'Connell, from a depressing Jimmy Garoppolo environment in Vegas, a collapsing Derek Carr, a collapsing Aaron Rodgers. He has not had good quarterback play in forever, and yet he is still producing great, yards. It offers the chance for a guy like, Ladd McConkey to thrive. It's not going to cost nearly as much as DK Metcalf. You're talking maybe $20 million a season, which seems, again, very fair to me. And with the money the Chargers have now, definitely something worth pursuing, because you're looking at now a Joey Bosa cut like between like $60 and $100 million. It depends on who you ask, right? It's insane the amount of money the Chargers have. Insane. And Davante Adams, be it a very budget-friendly option, is still a great elite option for this team, and you don't have to give up draft compensation. I think that could edge the Chargers in the arena of Davante Adams a little bit more, if I'm being honest. The Chargers very much so covet draft capital. It's hugely important to this team. So that could push, the narrative and push the needle towards the Davante Adams narrative just a little bit more, considering that maybe those, between the two flavors, that one kind of feels more right for the team right now. Buys you a couple of years. You have an elite wide receiver producing at a very good level. It provides, opportunity for Ladd McConkey to get open. Maybe your rookie tight end to put in work. Let's say you get to keep your second round pick. All of a sudden, you've got, an elite running back. You got a Henderson. You've got a Judkins. You've got a Johnson or somebody, of that caliber in the second round, a running back that could really be a featured part of your team. That exists because of the value that Davante Adams would provide if you decide to go down that road. Either way, man, it feels like one of these is probably happening. It feels like, let's go down to this photo of Davante Adams right here. Yeah. It feels like, DK Metcalf. It feels like one of these is going to happen. I don't know. Like, as a Chargers fan and having watched this team for a long time and understand, the opportunity that we have in front of us, and a lot of the, the smoke that we've seen in years past where it's like, hey, this is going to happen. I guess, it was more of hype. And that's something that, definitely is exciting. Something I actually enjoy about the offseason. Whether or not it happens or not, I love, the ride along the way. The Chargers fan that's been there, done that, it really feels like this is very, very likely. Like, the Chargers are probably going to walk away with DK Metcalf or Davante Adams. It kind of just depends on what the team wants right now, what fits the narrative, how much they value draft capital versus, elite longevity at the position, because you're not going to get DK Metcalf in the second round. We would take that every day of the week. You know what I mean? I don't know. The odds of us getting both, by the way, I've been asked this a lot too, I think are very low. Because then you're paying $50 million minimum for 2 wide receivers per year. And the Chargers were kind of in that situation not too long ago. And I don't see that as a Jim Harbaugh philosophy of building a team. It feels like you're going to want more money on the O-line, D-line, other positions. But wide receiver, I think you get away with, one guy maybe that's that big paid guy, and then fill in the blanks with rookies, et cetera, et cetera. Because by the time, you have to think about this, by the time it's time to pay Ladd McConkey, the contract for a guy like DK Metcalf would be expiring, especially Davante Adams. You know what I mean? It all just kind of fits. You guys in the comment section below, big question. Which scenario are you going with? The big play, young, bang for your buck, or I should say not bang for buck, young and relevant weapon in the NFL, DK Metcalf. It's going to be a bit expensive. Or the older yet still producing and budget-friendly Davante Adams. DK or Adams? You guys let me know in the comment section below. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, and for one last time, oh my God, it's Joey Bosa. Go on and have a great twilight era of your career, my friend. I very much so am rooting for you. Will always be a big, big Joey Bosa fan.